From Perez hitting Crudup and slamming him to the ground and kicking suspects, the police will swear to defend the law. But all they'll have on them are orange jumpsuits. The first warning is among the 6 charges against Giovanni Crespo, are aggravated murder and official misconduct. On the night of January 28, 2019, Gregory Griffin was pulled over for speeding. According to reports, they told him to turn off the engine during the stop, but he didn't do it. Griffin instead stepped on the gas and sped off, leaving the scene of the crime. It was a black Chrysler 300 from Thomas in Pennsylvania in 2017. The officer radioed for help as she chased after him, and Giovanni Crespo and his partner joined the high-speed chase. When the patrol car got close to the fleeing car, Crespo jumped out, pulled out his gun and fired. Not at the tires of the car, but straight at the men inside. He missed, but only for a short time. He quickly got back in the car, and the chase continued. Shots were fired at that vehicle, and he kept telling his partner to drive faster. At one point, his partner even told him to relax. It must have been the next day, because Crespo pulled that stunt again when the car stopped for the 3rd time. Got pumped up Crespo sped to the car stop and barely told them to stop before firing a shot through the passenger side, hitting both men in the head and killing Griffin, and seriously hurting his passenger, Andrew Dixon. Anyone firing a gun here should be arrested right away. As more police arrived, Crespo kept telling everyone what he had just done. Above head actually, I shot both of them here. After looking at the video, the police department decided that Crespo had used too much force. He was immediately fired and arrested. During the trial, Crespo's lawyer said that his client was a superhero because he saved lives that night, but the prosecution saw the evidence was different, mostly because Crespo's story had changed. The defendant shot Gregory Griffin in the back of the head, killing him and shooting his friend Andrew Dixon in the face, seriously hurting him. After 6 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Crespo was found guilty on all counts. Several of Crespo's family members broke down in tears, sobbing and screaming. The courtroom, as she ran out of the courtroom, one lady started screaming in Spanish. He could get up to 30 years in prison for his stupid actions in January. Speaking of stupid actions, you won't believe what this officer did to a patient just because he called him bro. This is the last person you want to see in your dreams, Jordy Yanes Martel. Take a good look at this face. Jordy Martel has to deal with 4. In January 2020, Martel, an officer with the Miami Gardens Police Department, filed an arrest report saying that while he was working off-duty as security at Tootsie's Cabaret, he had tased a drunk woman who wouldn't sit on the curb and was punching and kicking police officers. However, months later, a video surfaced showing that the whole arrest story was a lie, which is why we're all here today. Correct, what we all think is unfair is actually a crime. It all began when Sofia Sacco, who was 32 years old, was kicked out of Tootsie's Cabaret for throwing money at a waitress. She was trying to leave when Martel approached her. The club owner told him to tell her to never come back, but Martel had other plans. "Yes, you are breaking the law by being there. Now you need to follow me to my car, please," he told her, trespassing and told her to get out of the car. When Satchel refused, he reached into the car, opened the door, dragged her out, and threw her to the ground. The video was the 3rd time Martel had been caught using too much force, just 2 years after being hired by the Miami Gardens Police Department. He was already on thin ice. Martel lost his job and was later charged with crimes. The prosecution began the trial by giving a detailed account of what Martel did that night. Is it offensive that the guy at the table holds one of her arms and puts his knee on? This thin piece of fabric covers only her neck when she's on her back and her stomach when she's lying down. But his ashes don't stop there. They also show the lies he told to hide the arrest report. Mart's knee wasn't on her neck, and she tried to blame Satchel for not participating. You can see that, but you won't see any clear evidence that that neck or that knee is actually on the neck. In fact, you'll hear the opposite. As proof, Martel was found not guilty of the felony charges but guilty of battery and trespassing before the sentence was given. Satchel finally faced the officer who had attacked her, choking the life out of me, lying on me, and tasing me multiple times in the abdomen while I was pregnant. She wanted Martel to suffer as much as he wanted her to suffer that night. Martel also spoke in court, but the judge didn't listen to him. "Wasn't sure I took full responsibility for my actions or what happened that night. It could have affected me, and it did." Martel was given 30 days in jail and has to spend at least 100 hours talking at the police academy about what not to do as a police officer. You might think that a little drinking can make anyone lose it, even an officer, but our next officer was in the hospital, so What's his third reason? It might sound crazy for John Romer to hit a patient because he called him bro, but that's his middle name. On November 5, 2016, he was charged with official oppression and making a fake report to a peace officer. H. Newson, 20, was released from Texas Harris Methodist Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas. While he was waiting for his mother to pick him up, he borrowed a cell phone from someone else in the hallway. Suddenly, the guards came up to him and asked. So they kept asking him questions like why he was in the hospital and where his helmet was. Newman told them he was calling a parent to come pick him up, but their answers didn't make sense, so they kept questioning him. One of the guards was John Romer, a police officer who worked as an off-duty security guard at the hospital. Romer told Newson to shut up right away and pushed him toward the exit. That three-letter word pressed a button in Romer's brain. Newson was shocked when he was charged with criminal trespass and resisting arrest. But if you're being charged with resisting, I didn't resist for me, Hit Boy's music. Yeah, they put him in handcuffs and let him outside while he kept arguing his innocence while he was already in handcuffs. Romer kept hitting Newson while he was sitting down. That night, Newson was taken to jail. When Romer went before a grand jury later that year, he said that Newson had attacked him first, so he retaliated. He thought he could get away with it because he had been a police officer for 16 years and had gotten away with much worse. Let's go back to February 2011. Romer shot Cheryl Thomas, a disabled father of 3, 12 times while his kids watched from the back seat. There was a public outcry, but Romer was given qualified immunity. That's the least you can do, Telvey. Man, kids, I'm sorry still. The police chief defended his actions, saying that it's easy to look at police work and blame racism or something else wrong. But from the point of view of a police officer, we have the hardest job in the country. And when we make decisions that are that important, many people in our community will criticize us. But this time, Romer would not get away so easily. After looking into the arrest, the nuisance charges were dropped, but Romer was now facing his own charges. Romer's defense tried to say that he was justified in punching Newson because he was rude, but the prosecution had the right evidence against him. The jury also heard from the county prosecutor, who dropped the case against Newson, who said that the amount of force used against the young man was still wrong. The jury was not going to agree with that. I didn't like it the first time I saw it. It only took me one time to not like it. Romer was given a 5-year prison sentence after being found guilty of all crimes. Being confused for someone else is one thing, but what happens when an Officer Kevin Perez was charged with felony battery for attacking a suspect violently just because he was mad? It all started as a joke in the early hours of July 26, 2021. Delonta Crudup, who was 26 years old, was enjoying the last few days of his vacation at Miami Beach. That day, he rented a scooter to go see his friends, but as he tried to park, he tripped over some police officers. Milling around laughed with his friends at what a show Denton Crudup put on for the police in the middle finger, and then took off, running over an officer's foot as the other officers tried to get him to stop. He could have refused, and a high-speed chase began. When he got to the hotel, he ran into an elevator, but a lieutenant rushed into the lobby and stopped him with a gun. He could have fallen to the ground and been handcuffed. As more police arrived, they began to give him their brand of jungle justice by kicking him, hitting him, and pushing him to the ground. After being hit so hard, ground might have needed 6 stitches. Kevin Perez was one of 5 Miami Beach police officers charged in the case. He kicked Crudup in the head at least 3 times. As the trial started, the prosecution painted a picture of a man who was scared of the police, and then the offender punched him in the back of the head. This was caught on camera as he walked up to women and hit them in the back of the head. But the defense saw something different. He was shocked, but it wasn't as bad as when a prisoner lost an organ after being badly beaten by a police officer.